Election day is payday, at least if you're the Liberal, Labor, National or Greens parties. In the 2019 federal election, taxpayers gave over $69 million to the big political parties. Nice, if you can get it. More than $27 million went to the Liberal Party, with more than $24 million going to the Labor Party. Why, do you ask? Because every single vote is given a taxpayer-funded payment of almost $3. And you get 2 votes, one in the lower house, one in the upper house. So actually, your vote is worth $6 to whichever party you give it to. But not quite, because the major political parties, well, they didn't want the minor political parties getting the same advantages they were getting, so they put a threshold on it. You only get the payment if you get more than 4% of the primary vote. That's the number one vote. Doesn't matter what happens with preferences when it comes to your payments. You have to get more than 4% of the primary vote, or you get paid nothing. Nada, niet, zero, zip. If 2 major supermarkets came together and planned a way to game the system that would make sure that smaller competitors were at a hopeless competitive disadvantage to them, they would go to prison. That's anti-competitive behaviour the ACCC would investigate, and people would go to jail. The political parties that we have in Australia, Labor, Liberal, National and Greens, are running a political cartel, a taxpayer-funded closed shop where every single election they make millions. And their competitors? Well, they get nothing. But it gets even better for the major parties. You see, because they can predict reasonably reliably that they're going to get a shitload of money at every single election, they don't even have to have the money to spend. They can go to the bank and say, hey bank, last federal election we made $27 million, so how about you lend us maybe $20 million? And we'll make up the rest ourselves through donations, etc. They can go ahead and spend money that they mostly don't even have, knowing that after the election, it's going to come back to them. Minor parties, on the other hand, well, there's no guarantee they'll achieve that 4% threshold. So they can't borrow money, they have to spend only money that they've actually gotten from donors, while the big boys, they're just rolling in it. Rolling in taxpayer cash. This is a rort. This is a cartel. And it's a disgrace. So what can you or I do about it? Well, number one, you can make sure that every Australian you know has seen this video and is aware of this problem. They are aware of the political cartel. The second thing that we can all do, though, is make sure that we don't vote for any of the major parties, not Liberal, not Labor, not Nationals, and not Greens. If we make sure that we give our vote to these freedom-friendly minor parties that I've been talking about in my videos, then either they get more than 4% of the vote, they cross that threshold and so they get paid, which means at the very least our money went to someone that's trying to break up the cartel, or if they don't get to 4% in their primary vote, well, the money stays in taxpayers' hands. You've saved us all having to pay this ridiculous cost. It is an absolute crime, in my opinion, that taxpayers are being made to fund the advertising of political parties. First, they make voting compulsory, so you have to do it. And then they make sure they get paid for every vote they get. And then they make sure that the money doesn't go to the little parties, it gets shared between the big boys. If that's not cartel behaviour, I don't know what is. We need to break up the political cartel in Australia. Do not vote your number one spot for the Liberal Party, Labor Party, Nationals or Greens. I would encourage you to vote for all of the freedom-friendly minor parties before you vote for any of the majors. Now, personally, I'm a member of the Liberal Democrats and I'm their lead Senate candidate in Tasmania. I'd love for you to vote for me or for your local Liberal Democrat candidate. But listen, we're not the only party that stands for freedom out there, at least freedom against COVID overreach and other things like that. I would encourage you to pick your favourite out of UAP, One Nation, ourselves, the Liberal Democrats. There's IMOP and there's GAP and there's a whole bunch of others. You pick the one that you want to give that number one preference to. The one that if they get 4%, they'll get money. Pick that party, give them number one. And then give a number 2 to another freedom-friendly minor party. Number 3, number 4, number 5, etc. And do not put any of the major parties until you've already numbered all of the freedom-friendly minor parties. We need to send a very clear message in this election that this political cartel is not acceptable. This anti-competitive behaviour that would put anyone in the private sector in prison is not acceptable coming from the public sector, and it's certainly not acceptable when they're giving themselves public money. We have a chance at the coming election to send a very clear message, and we have to do it now. My name's Topher Field. I am the lead Senate candidate in Tasmania for the Liberal Democrats. But more important than getting me elected is sending a crystal clear message that the status quo of Australian politics that has existed for the last 50 years is changing. We need to make sure that these big political parties feel the earth move beneath their feet when the votes are counted in May. You can help to do that by sharing this video. Make sure that every Australian that you know has seen this video and my earlier videos using marbles to illustrate how preferential voting works. And then make sure that you put every single freedom-friendly minor party on your ballot before you put any of the majors. My name's Topher Field, and I endorse this message.
Authorised by John Humphries for the Liberal Democratic Party, Mount Waverley, Victoria.